Hello, innovators. I am Dustin Miller, Poly Innovator. Today we're talking with Sean Shepard, the founder of GrowthX and GrowthX Academy. Thank you for joining me on the Polymath Polycast. Please say hello to the innovators in the audience.
Hello, innovators in the audience.
This is a show about becoming a polymath and all the areas of interest going along the way. We are here to talk about the future and philosophy of growth hacking, why it's important, and what new workers in the tech field can do to be more innovative. Hello and welcome to the Polymath Polycast. So to start off, why don't you share something about yourself that no one knows about you?
Something that no one knows about me.
Yeah.
I have to be careful with that one.
I guess so.
The current president of Ukraine was my idea, which is actually a true story.
You got time if you want to share it.
I was asked to go to this think tank event in the mountains of Guatemala 2 years ago, and it was all about accelerating freedom and liberty for humanity, which I think is cool because to me, freedom is just a product, and the world is a market, just like everything else. You got to think a product and market. There's a way to do it, and so one of the projects that we were working on, think of it like a Shark Tank thing. I'm part of the Brain Trust, and I'm one of the judges, if you will. And there's these different freedom projects from around the world that were being pitched.
Mm-hmm.
And they started with several hundred applicants, and they narrowed it down to about, I think it was 7 or 8 that came. And we spent 3 days with these folks, just helping them develop their ideas and hopefully get them to a place where they could actually test them in the market. And one of them was this new very Liberty Party out of the Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And they were just coming out of this very sort of, corrupt, despotic kind of government situation, very corrupt. And they were looking to try and come up with a candidate and a platform to run. And so I said, we live in the age of reality television. Why don't you find a celebrity that shares your views and has got a great following and run them on your platform? I mean, look at us. We have Trump. And so they did. And 8 months later, I get an email out of the blue. So we followed your advice. We found a guy, and he happened to be like the #1 sitcom guy in the Ukraine.
Crazy.
He was literally a television actor,
and
a comedian. And they ran him, and he won. And now this is the guy that's been at the center of this whole Russiagate thing that's been going on for the last 3 years.
Wow.
Vladimir Zelensky. Yes.
Huh.
So anyway, the whole notion of him was my idea at this thing, and I got this nice thank you note. I just honestly had no idea that was going to happen.
Well, you inspired them to take charge of their actions and whatnot, and just try to find someone that could win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? You find something, you find a product that's going to fit into a market in a timely fashion, and you got a chance.
It reminds me actually of the French president. Did you know about that?
No, about Macron?
So the French president in the last election, I think he was elected around the same time as Trump. He growth hacked his election using PPC, content marketing, in-person marketing, and really niche targeting to get loyal votes.
I believe that.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Well, that's one of the key lessons that I teach to the growth marketers and growth hackers when they always ask me, like, what's the one hack, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say it's exploiting an emerging channel before your competition does. One of my business partners founded the world's largest online dating site by learning how to do, which as Match.com,
mm-hmm.
Will Bunker, by understanding and exploiting affiliate marketing before anybody else really knew how to do it in the dating community. And this is the middle and late 90s. Another friend of mine who built the largest auto e-commerce site at the time, AutoAnything.com, did not come from the auto industry. He was a Google SEO, SEM, PPC expert. And he learned how to exploit it before any of the other major auto players did, right? And I think that just like that, if a political campaign can exploit that in a way that it hadn't been exploited before, they have a distinct advantage. Look at the work that Cambridge Analytica has done with Facebook and these other campaigns in the last few years. And I know a lot of this stuff is politics and it's controversy. And frankly, I don't give a shit about politics.
Yeah.
I really don't. Focus on execution and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself and those that you're responsible for and your community at large. And you tend to have a meaningful existence in this world. But if you can identify an emerging channel and exploit it before other people do, you have a tremendous opportunity to win. And I think the new emerging channel that I'm most excited about is this channel,
Really?
podcast,
Yeah.
long form podcasting. I think long form podcasting is the new content marketing channel. I think when it's done correctly and well, the content is of high quality, and it speaks to a specific audience. It can create all kinds of opportunities.
Definitely. And the whole field of audio is evolving quite a bit. In fact, we met on matchmaker.fm. That came from podcast.co, who the CEO of that, podcast.co and radio.co was my second guest on this podcast, actually.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So that's how I found it. He pitched me, he sent me a cold LinkedIn mail.
Really?
Trying to pitch me on investment for the thing. I actually never replied to him. I just went down the rabbit hole of enjoying the website, creating a profile, and before you know it, I had dozens of inbound messages from folks such as yourself wanting to do content. And obviously, we live in a time right now where everybody's stuck at home.
Yeah.
So I have more time to do these things. I'm certainly enjoying it. It's been a nice rhythm for me. I usually would reserve, maybe time for one of these a week, and now I'm doing at least one a day.
Yeah.
And it's been very rewarding. And the topics are always different. The hosts and the dynamic between myself and the hosts are unique and different. And it gets me thinking about things in different ways that I haven't had a chance to really reflect on because I've been going and blowing for 25 years.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
I'm glad to have people like you on the show too. It's very interesting to see your viewpoints, learn from you, get great content for the audience, that kind of thing. And like you said, I don't know if it's just because of Matchmaker or just this time in general, but we've been having like podcasts every day. I have 2 today, 2 tomorrow, I think 1 later in the week, 1 yesterday. It's been insane, but it's been so much exhilarating content.
Yeah, and I think that will continue. The trend, and again, the growth and the trend opportunity is in audio. But in this kind of audio, again, look at Joe Rogan. He truly innovated it. His podcast can go anywhere from 20 minutes to 4 hours because he wants them to, because they're just having a conversation. Yeah. Because deep thought and the ability to engage in deep thought in a safe and let's say not confrontational, but malicious way has been lost in the last 10, 15, 20 years. Social media and the internet has created an environment where it's very difficult for people to disagree without being disagreeable. Yeah. And so he's done a really good job of bringing back a place where, like, you don't even have to agree with anything that anyone says on a Joe Rogan podcast, but just take a step back and watch the dynamic. What you're watching is curious, humble people trying to learn something or teach something. And that's how we grow. Yeah. Right. You learn. The fastest way to learn is to be able to teach it back to someone else. And your goal should be, I know I learn when I teach, because that feedback is what I look for so that I can personally grow. So as you watch how he runs his show and how he does things, I think that's the blueprint for the future of long form podcasting. But hopefully it's going to bring back some sanity and common sense and wisdom and civility to just the general nature of any kind of discourse, because it's been lost, I think, for a while now. Yeah.
Well, and just being able to appreciate knowledge for the sake of learning knowledge, and also understanding how philosophy can be used in a very modern way, but not necessarily floaty and unuseful, so to speak, but just kind of take a step back, like you said, and be able to listen to somebody, listen to their viewpoint without having to accept it, that kind of thing.
That's absolutely right. And I mean, I see this all the time, especially with this whole, what side of the COVID thing are you on sort of person. And I'm not on any side. I'm sort of in the middle of that Venn diagram that says that I'm concerned about the health of people, but I'm also concerned about the economy and what that does to the health of people. And it's okay to be both. But to a lot of people, it's not. Yeah. You're either on one side or you're on the other, right? And I see, for example, on Facebook, I had a dear friend who will remain nameless, who I absolutely adore, but he is very much one of those black and white people on the issue. And he posted something like, if you are going to go outside and not pay it, you're not going to listen to the shelter in place thing, then just unfriend me right now. And I'm thinking, come on. I mean, I think ultimately what you're really doing is doing the people in your community a favor by telling them that you're an asshole and that you're not willing to listen to the other side of an argument. When really there's nothing, it's really possible to disagree with somebody and still like them.
Yeah.
In fact, most of my friends and I wouldn't be friends with anybody if that were the standard,
Yeah.
because you disagree with people about a lot of things, right? And once you get to know them, if you're willing to, you're going to find out that you have varying thoughts, opinions, and worldviews on a whole range of things. But that doesn't mean you can't be great friends. Some of my best friends in the world are diametrically on the other side of the aisle when it comes to worldviews on things like politics and religion and things like that. But generally, our core values are very similar. Like we trust each other, we respect each other, we believe in loyalty, things like that, and family, the things that we care about, right?
Right.
And that keeps us friendly, because that's the things that matters. First principles, not all the other noise. And so my hope is that people can get back to that and recognize that that's how you go through life, and like in a
finding that balance, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
To those, kind of going back to the point earlier, we were talking about the growth hacking in like the election and finding that kind of that first mover advantage, so to speak. I feel like that's kind of a great premise behind growth hacking. So to those who are unaware, what is growth hacking in your words? So that way people can understand what we're talking about.
Growth hacking is figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
Growth hacking is being resourceful. It's being creative. It's finding a way to get to the truth quickly and as possible about where your product or service or offering fits in a market, if it does at all. Right. It's constantly questioning everything, measuring everything that you test, and always experimenting and staying out in front. The channels under which you can communicate with humans are constantly changing. They've never changed faster than they're changing now.
Right.
I mean, all you got to do is look at TikTok in the last few months and how it's gone from nothing to this massive success story. And it will have a half-life too, right? It will reach its peak, and then it'll taper, and then something else will come on, right? And that's a constant thing. So are you staying out in front of those channels? Do you truly understand how people want to be communicated with, not just what to communicate? Because we all have our own different levels and styles of receiving information and exchanging information. And then we also have our own ideas about the levels of intimacy associated with that, right?
Right.
Like text is an ultimate form of intimacy when it comes to consumerism. If you can get somebody to allow you to text them, that's a big win. So how do you do that? I don't know. Depends on the person, depends on the product, depends on the market, depends on the dynamic. But a hacker is going to figure that out. They're going to understand what the strategic question is that needs to be asked, and they're going to do everything in their power thoughtfully and hopefully ethically to get to the answer, but never stop. And that's what hacking is. Really
kind of persevering towards that singular goal of like, hey, I want to get to this person in the most ethical and pronounced way as possible. So what is the then deep importance behind growth hacking then, or the concept of it?
Once again, I think it's a creative way of finding traditional answers in settings where you're not getting through with traditional means. So general marketing, which is great, even growth marketing, which is more strategic in nature, much more data driven, still isn't necessarily enough sometimes to get you where you want to go. So a growth hacker is somebody that's entrepreneurial, they're creative, they're gritty, they're persistent, they learn rapidly. They love feedback. The word rejection is not in their vocabulary. They view feedback as a gift, and they're constantly persistently curious about what's going on, and they're on top, on the edge of everything, and they're constantly testing and constantly experimenting. And they're really, really good at finding those breakthroughs, those breakthrough moments and places where traditional marketers may not be.
Really finding those great truths. And you were talking about entrepreneurship. In fact, one of the things that I was watching before going at this interview, you were saying that entrepreneurship has been overhyped, that if you're not ready to be pulled by that route, if you're not already being pulled by it, then you probably shouldn't go for it. Entrepreneurship chose you, but it didn't necessarily, you couldn't necessarily do anything else. You didn't want to work for anybody else. I totally agree. I don't think I could work for someone else for very long. It just doesn't work. Tell me some of your thought processes behind that kind of statement there.
I think some of it's just a realization that happened over time. I never gave any of it much thought. I just sort of followed where it took me and tried to pay attention to my gut in real time about the things that motivated me and pushed me and drove me versus the things that did not. And there's sort of there's the things you're good at and you like, and the things that you're good at that you don't like, and there's things that you're not good at that you like, and there's things you're not good at that you don't like, right? It's kind of a 2x2 matrix. Stay away from the things that you're not good at and you don't like, but there's an interesting relationship between the other three. It's really easy to just go after the things you're good at and that you like, but where the real growth opportunities exist is going after the things that you're not good at. And when you like the things you're not good at, you figure out a way. That's the whole principle of mastery. People do it all the time. What separates Michael Jordan from everybody else is innate gift. It's the fact that he loved the process, and he's the most competitive man on the planet. And I know his Last Dance show's been on recently, which is why it's been prevalent in my mind. I had an experience, got to play a lot of golf with him in the summer of 1993 between his retirements before he announced he was going to baseball. And I've seen it firsthand how his brain works.
Yeah.
And how he's immediately, everything is a competition, and he demands the best out of everyone constantly. And he's constantly pushing you. If you can't handle that, get out of the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so entrepreneurship was just something that I was. It was in my DNA. And everybody, not everyone, but for the most part, the people I've seen who've been sucked in by the romance of it.
Yeah.
And this isn't a knock on them, but they watch Silicon Valley and they think, oh, this is great, I can do that. They oftentimes, find out very quickly that it's not all that. And even those that want to work with entrepreneurs need to have an element of entrepreneurism and or respect for it, and a set of attributes to embrace the ambiguity of the situation, the constant emotional challenges and the roller coaster of the ups and downs, and the uncertainties and the unknowns, and learn how to build, design, and deploy things as opposed to just operate things that have already been built, designed, and deployed. It's a very different mindset to go from 0 to 1 and 1 to N. So what I've learned over the years is that the most successful entrepreneurs just really didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And I did make the joke. I had a job once. It didn't take. I'm a terrible employee. I have a real problem with authority. I tend to like to do things the way I like to do them. But over time, I've also learned the importance of how to temper that in certain ways and hone it and channel it so that I can get the most out of my efforts. Yeah. And that usually comes from doing less and then obsessing over the things I do, as opposed to trying to do too many things. Also bringing other people in who I can work with that cover my weaknesses, that are strength to strength, so to speak. Supporting them in what they need at the same time, and focusing on the things that really provide meaning in my life, not happiness. I think happiness is fleeting. I think meaning is lasting, and I think that's what people need to focus on. That was sort of the premise behind that comment about, if you aren't being dragged into entrepreneurship by some unknown force, then you should really question whether or not it's for you.
Yeah, and question whether or not that you actually should even go down that path at all. And you were talking about how entrepreneurship is a constant roller coaster, just up and down, up and down, up and down. If you don't have the grit to handle that and the correct mindset behind it, kind of what you were saying this moment ago, is that you have to be pulled towards something. You have to have that why or that passion, or else you're just not going to make it through.
It's really hard to make it through the difficult times, right? It doesn't mean you won't, but you may not appreciate it fully.
Yeah.
Thing about it is that you've got this constant doubt and fear of failure that's going through your brain. The thing about being an entrepreneur is you're the first one to show up, you're the last one to leave, and you're the last one to get paid. And you don't realize that if you haven't worked as an entrepreneur. And people look at entrepreneurs who've been successful over time. They think it just happened overnight. It was easy, and then there's they create these personas in their head that that's just how it is.
Yeah,
that's not it. I mean, it's hard. Entrepreneur is a French word for crazy person.
Yeah.
You're chewing on broken glass while walking, crawling through a sewage pipe. It's not easy, right?
Right.
But if it's your calling, it's your calling.
I've been quite entrepreneurial most of my life. Even when I was 10, I sold temporary tattoos as a little business, having a stand on the Earth Day Festival downtown. And it was just one of those
Nice.
things where it was in me.
I was an arms dealer when I was that
Oh,
age.
there you go.
A funny story. I used to sell Chinese throwing stars and ninja gear,
Huh.
nunchucks.
Cool.
My brother and I were huge Bruce Lee fans growing up.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
And
It's awesome.
back then in the 80s, I'm dating myself. You could order these things right out of the back of a karate magazine or black belt magazine. And you literally would just cut out this little strip of registration paper. You fill it out by hand. You check a box that says, yes, I'm 18 years or older. And you put cash money, coins and dollar bills in the envelope. And in 4 to 6 weeks, your Chinese stars showed up. And then you'd sit there and you'd throw them against the fence or you'd throw them at trees and you'd do all that stuff. No one was harmed in this story, I promise. And then your friends come to you and say, oh, those are cool. I want to sell me one. I'm like, they're not for sale. Like, I'll give you $5. And I just paid 75 cents for this thing. Yeah. I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah,
I just found a business model.
Right.
So then I started selling them. I started ordering them in droves. I took all that money and reinvested, and I would sell them at school.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just crazy. If I did that today, it'd be national news and I'd be in deep shit. Yeah. But this is a very long time ago. That's how I got started. I mean, I was always doing other things, right? Like you said, if you're doing a lemonade stand or it was mowing lawns or doing yard work or digging ditches or cleaning up construction sites, anything to make a buck.
Well, and there's one story actually I haven't shared on the show yet, but like when I was 8 or 9, I would ask my mom and grandma and my family for office supplies because I wanted to be a businessman when I grew up. And that was what I wanted for my birthday.
That's awesome. I love it.
So
I love it. Dude, that's a vision that you had. And you clearly have stuck to it.
Yeah. I've been talking to a lot of entrepreneurs and polymaths and innovators on the show. One thing that stands out is mindset. What do you think sets apart those individuals?
Well, mindset is actually the first of the 5 skills I think that everyone needs to be successful in the innovation economy. And I don't care what it is you choose to do, but to have a growth mindset. And the phrase was coined by Dr. Carol Dweck at Stanford University. And in her book, literally called The Growth Mindset, where she did early childhood development research for years, trying to understand what happens to us between the ages of birth to like 4 or 5 years old. And then from 5 on, we lose our creativity. We lose our creative fear of failure. Mm-hmm. We stop trying to learn. We start to fear making mistakes. What happens, right? And what happens is society starts to condition us with a whole host of things. For example, by the time you're 17 years old, I think research says that you hear no 250,000 times and you only hear yes like 5,000 times. It's some obnoxious number, but there's a massive disparity because you just hear no, and can't, and don't, that sort of stuff. And so it starts to condition people into a fixed mindset where they follow the rules, they check the boxes, they do as little as possible in and around taking risks. They lose their creativity. So that's her notion. So then she starts to chronicle, what are all the best attributes of a mindset that is successful, and that's a growth mindset. It's the idea of being a learn-it-all instead of a know-it-all. It's having that humility to say, what I don't know is more important than what I do, and I can't wait to find out. It's constantly being able to adapt and change and think critically on your feet. It's the understanding and idea of embracing feedback as a gift as opposed to the rejection that I talked about before. And it has a lot to do with the building blocks of mastery, with deliberate intent and practice. You can master anything. Look at Malcolm Gladwell's 10 years and 10,000 hours concept from the tipping point. And there's building blocks of mastery, which we teach at the GrowthX Academy and the growth hacking classes, as well as sales classes and UX design and data science and everything else. Is you start with, at the bottom of the pyramid, with knowledge. Here's what you need to know. Then competency. Here's what you need to be able to do with that knowledge, right? At a level of competency that's literally what you would define as competent. Then there's proficiency, which means you can now be a professional earning in this area. And then there's ultimately mastery. That's when you become a subject matter expert. And those are the building blocks. And so if you think about it, the first thing you need to do is acquire the knowledge. What do you need to know? Then your competency. What do you need to be able to do? Then proficiency. How do you do that in a world and behave correctly? So knowledge, skills, and behaviors. Because it's not enough to just know something or do it. How do you behave with it? And how do you behave around other people with it? And how do you behave when things don't go the way you're supposed to go?
Right.
And that's what clearly separates the wheat from the chaff, and then ultimately mastery. Mm-hmm. And so I always implore people that they can master anything, even if they've never done it before. You don't have to be born with some level of innate talent and gifts to be successful at these things. And that's what Carol Dweck learned from her research. And that's what Michael Jordan proved in his career. It wasn't just being gifted. Yeah. He had a talent level that was good. And some would say certainly great, but it was what he did with it that mattered most. And so anybody can do that. And so that's the first thing. Mindset is everything. If people don't have their mind right, they're going to prevent themselves from executing well on every other aspect of what I think are the top skills.
Yes, definitely. That's actually one of the reasons why I created this show, is to help expand people's perception of the growth mindset and help try to cultivate that in the listeners. And even polymathy in general, people often misunderstand it as some kind of like, hey, jack of all trades, master of none. But the trick about being a polymath is you're a master of multiple areas. It'd be like if we went multiple pyramids, like you're saying, in those competency lines. And that's one reason why I wanted to create this show, is to find people like you who can help expand people's perception, learn something new, learn how to be more innovative, not only just in business, but in life too. So I guess the one thing we could ask too is, like, what is a polymath to you then? If someone
They're an athlete. It's somebody who can do many things. So I'll use a sports analogy again. It's like the 5-tool player in baseball, right? They can hit for power. They can hit for average. They can run. They can play great defense and multiple positions. Yeah. Right. And that's what a polymath is. It's no different than being polytechnical. If you go to Cal Poly, for example, in San Luis Obispo, which is another great school. But the idea is that you build a cross-functional skill set that allows you to not just be able to do the thing you do well, but understand what other people do and how they do it. And then it brings things into account like systems thinking and being a model thinker, which I think are really, really important. Yeah. Because if you can think at a systems level, you can start to rearrange things in an order that's more efficient for whatever purpose you're looking at. I think the most creative people in the world aren't originalists in terms of what they create. I think they're great at rearranging things. Yeah. I think they're great systems thinkers. I think they're great about frameworks and models, which is what I've built. Just a series of frameworks that get applied to helping growth hackers, growth marketers, sales professionals, UX designers, data scientists, entrepreneurs, founding teams of any kind, find product market fit for whatever it is they're taking to market. And it's about that concept of taking something someplace new. And that's a dynamic, that's a learning framework based on human to human experience, not on business to consumer business models or marketplaces or widgets or products or services or whatever it is you're throwing out there. Because that's the dynamic that has to be learned quickly and efficiently, and it's not today. Yeah. The failure rate of new products to the market is still the same as it was 50 years ago in technology. Yeah. And the reasons are still the same. It has to do with markets and people, not with the products or technologies themselves. But it's never been easier to build and sell technology. It's also never been harder to get people to buy it. Yeah. For that very same reason. So we should start emphasizing things like the market before the product, right? The problem before the solution, the person before the technology, and try and understand exactly what it is we're doing. I just came off this long workshop just before getting on with you, where there's a large contingency of people across the country trying to rethink the American social safety net. How can we make it more efficient? How can we drive costs down? How can we improve accessibility, right? Right. All those things. And immediately, and I see this over and over and over again with every wonderful initiative, right? Everybody's got a vision or an idea that they want to accomplish, but they just sort of jump right to the end and they don't stop and take a call and go back to the beginning and ask the key question. You know, how do you define the person that you're trying to solve this problem for? What are they going through? What do they care about? What are their hopes, fears, and dreams? What's their persona?
Yeah.
Right? And if you're a growth marketer or growth hacker, and you don't understand your user or buyer personas, you're going to struggle. And you're not going to get most of that just by clicking micro filters on Facebook or Instagram. You're going to get it from talking to humans.
Mm-hmm.
And so you better be doing cohort analysis of in-person user interviews with the people within your buyer personas and customer profiles. So you can truly understand who they are and what motivates them, what moves them, and what elements of value you bring to them, and what emotional connections you make or don't make, what things you need to avoid, where trust exists and where it doesn't, how you get to it. Because trust is the ultimate foundation for any successful relationship,
Right.
personal or otherwise. So how do you establish that trust? Is everything, but you can't do that until you understand those people. And so I got a big virtual room of glossy, glazed looks on their faces, because there's so much in the weeds on the product and the platform and what they want to and their vision and their goal, but they didn't stop to think about who are they solving this for really, and how do they segment them, and which one is the best one to start with, and how do we do that? And so we flipped the script, right? We changed the entire narrative and the thought process from this top-down approach that's very product and self-centric to very customer and market-centric. And let's work from the market backwards. We construct a hypothesis about what value we can provide to what use case, to what customer profile and circumstance. Then we construct a way to measure it, glean the insights from it, and use that to monetize it. Those are the 5 steps. And it works the same no matter where you go. That's systems thinking when applied correctly. And now they're off to the races and they're all super excited and they've got a new plan and approach to go learn that. And then we'll talk again soon and hopefully I'll keep them on the right path. But otherwise, they'll linger and linger and linger. And I see that over and over and over again. It's one of the primary reasons entrepreneurs fail.
How do you think people can change their mindsets? Because having a growth mindset is almost like flipping a switch, but there also is that transitionary period where you have to accept the fact that you may be wrong, that you may not know enough, and it's kind of hard for some people to accept. How do you think people can do that?
So there's tons of free resources online about how shifting to a growth mindset, and they should read the book and or listen to the interviews with Dr. Carol Dweck, DWECK, on this very topic, and then they should find an accountability buddy or partner that they can tell, look, this is what I'm trying to do with my life. I need your help because I need someone to tell me the truth.
Yeah. Am
I doing the right things? Am I full of shit? When am I slipping back into my old fixed mindset ways? And you can immediately flip the switch. You absolutely can. I promise you, there are tactics that you can use to immediately enact a growth mindset and start learning and seeing. So for example, you go from yes, but mindset to yes, and mindset. What happens when you start to change your brain? You go away from making assumptions to constructing hypotheses.
Right.
How does your brain now work as a next natural step when you operate it on a hypothesis as opposed to an assumption? A hypothesis becomes a question that you want to answer. An assumption is treated as if it's a fact and you operate off of that. That's 2 very different behaviors.
Yeah.
It starts with how you think. Right? And so there's a lot of ways to immediately enact that. So things like yes and as opposed to yes but. Things like constructing a hypothesis as opposed to operating on an assumption. Things like instead of addressing intent, how about address impact when having a difficult conversation? So you pissed me off because of a behavior that you displayed. Instead of me assuming that you did that on purpose to hurt me and starting a fight with you, and then getting you into a defensive position and now creating and escalating that discussion. Rather, I should say, when you did that, it made me feel this way. And I'd like to understand more about that and why that happened. And I'm sure you might see it differently. You may not even be aware of it, but can we talk about it?
Right.
Very disarming, very different way of dealing with things. And then the other big one is it's okay to hold up your hand and go, I don't know what I don't know. I want to get the answers, and I want to learn, and I want to grow from it. Whether that's to your customer, or whether that's to your husband or wife or spouse or child, or to somebody you work with, boss or employee. There's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know, because we don't know what we don't know yet.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of this world. And so one of the best technology sales professionals I ever met didn't know shit about technology. It's like me. I make the joke, I can't even spell HTML. Because I can't, I mean, I really can't. I can't code, but I know what technology can do to solve real problems and make the world a better place. And I know how to make that translation, which is, again, one of the key skills that talk about that are needed now. But this person would immediately tell their customers and prospects, I don't know how that thing works, but I'm going to find out for you, and I'm going to get someone who does. And then they would make a promise, and they would keep that promise. And that then built credibility and rapport, which created the trust necessary to do business. And then that person's customers were with them for a lifetime, and they're still friendly today because they know that that's the kind of person they were dealing with. They were honest. They admitted that they didn't know something, but they knew how to find the answer. And that's what a hacker does. I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out.
Right. It reminds me actually of one of my day jobs in the past where I, as a personal trainer and water aerobics instructor, there's a lot of nuances to the human body, knowing what muscles do what and what sort of things you can do, especially if you have injury and you have to work around that, what you can do to progress still and have that same level of leveling up over and over again. You want to keep progressing, keep getting stronger. And there'll be certain points where someone come up to me like, hey, how can I work out my back without getting hurt or something like that? And some cases I wouldn't know what they could do, but I told them like, hey, I'll go find out and try to help them get past that hurdle, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's entirely the point. That's entirely the point.
So you were talking about finding that person to be able to help in a couple tangents ago. And it's interesting how that kind of all comes together with the growth mindset. You have to grow your interest, your level of curiosity. How can you develop that curiosity into the customers? Like a lot of people fail to be successful because they focus too much on the product, like you say, or not by growing a tribe or community. So how can they increase that curiosity in their customers to build that community?
Well, so the first thing they have to do is create an environment where people will tell them the truth.
Okay.
Because the first two things you're always looking for is someone's time and their truth. And it's not that easy to get. We live in a world now where people don't want to tell you the truth if it creates more work or conflict. So set yourself up and position yourself and your offering and your messaging in such a way that it reduces the work and the potential conflict associated with telling you the truth.
Yeah.
People don't want more work, they want less. So that's the first thing you do. Then once you've done that, you construct a value hypothesis around how you think you can help someone based on the work you've done to understand who they are, developing those buyer personas, understanding the potential use case of your product or service, and then giving them a framework for how you're going to go about doing that. That's the process. And when you find the right people with the right mindset, not just your mindset, but the mindset of your customers, who are willing to take a risk of giving you that time and truth, then you have an opportunity to learn and create mutually beneficial outcomes. Everything you do needs to be an ethical win-win for everyone. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's all, to me, success is defined as, is helping other people get what they want. If you help them get what they want, you will be successful as a result. That's your job.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that win-win. All right, pivoting just a little bit, you founded GrowthX and GrowthX Academy to share your knowledge and what your team has to offer. What do you think the philosophy behind growth hacking and GrowthX?
Yeah, so GrowthX and GrowthX Academy. We were all, myself, my partners, were all serial entrepreneurs turned investors, turned frustrated investors because our companies weren't succeeding. And the reasons they weren't succeeding were not because they couldn't build a product, but because they couldn't build a market. And it's what I alluded to a little bit earlier. So we set about trying to just solve that problem for ourselves first. How can we help our companies get traction in the market and find what's called product market fit? Right? That's when you frankly can't keep up anymore with the demand based on what the work you're doing. The market's pulling you as opposed to you pushing it in. And when you do that, then you can build a sustainable, lasting, meaningful business, raise another round of money if you're in venture, or just build a nice lifestyle business, which is also awesome and okay too. Even though a lot of people in Silicon Valley will disagree with that. But anyway, that was the intent. And then that turned into a successful venture where we were reducing the failure rate of our companies, improving the scale rate of them with a framework that I developed called our Market Development Framework, or our Market Acceleration Program, that allowed us in a very measurable way to help our companies do three things: find the truth about where their product fits in the market, if it does at all, what to do about it; create a functional learning organization out of that founding team, knowing they have limited time, money, and resources to do it, so it's got to be lean and capitally efficient; and then ultimately determine if there's a profitable business model associated with that. So truth, learning, and profitability. And it unfolds into these three traction-based milestones that aren't focused on revenue or number of customers, but on real meaningful outcomes that lead to those things. Where most people, as I said earlier, tend to skip over those things. They want to get to the end, but you've got to do the work. If you want to get to the mountaintop, you got to climb the whole damn mountain. And so that's where most failure happens. 70% of funded startups in Silicon Valley fail. 80% of the reasons they fail have to do with those kinds of things. So that's what we addressed. That was the start of it. Then we found out very quickly that there was a lack of what we call stage relevant talent.
Okay.
People, as I said earlier, that had the right mindset, attributes, and experience to help a company go from 0 to 1. And so we created GrowthX Academy because we couldn't find anybody else that was training or educating smart, awesome people who wanted to work in tech and didn't want to code in meaningful, valuable roles like growth marketing, growth hacking, UX design thinking, data science, and entrepreneurial stuff. And so that created a community of awesome, talented adult learners who came in under that pedagogy of the GrowthX Academy, which is mindset, mastery, career, and community. We've talked about mindset mastery. The third is that career focus, how you can apply everything you do to bring you joy and meaning in your life. And because it's more about who you work with, not what you do, that matters. So understanding that. And then ultimately, community. How do you build a community of support around each individual student and startup that's in that community? And so that's building a global network of amazing mentors that like the OG growth hackers themselves, like my partner Will Bunker or Sean Ellis, who's my good friend and a mentor who coined the phrase. And how do they contribute to the community? Because they get it. They completely agree. Corporations and companies and entrepreneurs have to train and pay to train this talent because it doesn't come out of university like that. And it doesn't come out of traditional companies thinking that way. So we created this accelerated learning environment. They would work on real projects with real startups, get a real portfolio of experience. The startups would get free help. Eventually everybody wins and they get placed into the market. And that's how it all started. And then it evolved from there into funded startups that we couldn't invest in that wanted help. So we launched GrowthX Studios as a way to help them develop products and markets and get them to market quickly. And then corporations would come to us and say, we suck at innovation. We're afraid of being the next yellow cab in the age of Uber. How can we get involved? Well, we can teach you how to invest in these companies, like set up a venture capital fund like we've done. We can help you set up your own accelerator programs using our framework to help your companies find product market fit. And we can help you find product market fit for your own new technologies out of your own innovation work and labs with what we now call in the corporate world a commercialization framework, because they have the same failure problems as startups. And then that became governments and other accelerators and incubators and economic development organizations reaching out saying, how do we recreate what you've done? So now we license it. Think of it like a franchise. So different countries like Malaysia and Korea and Canada, who are early partners, have all jumped on board and have launched their own GrowthX communities to build their own Silicon Valley style ecosystem. So they're not losing their top talent. They're creating jobs, developing the economy, and keeping their people home. That feels good. And that's what I like doing today. That's the most rewarding aspect of the work that I do now.
Yeah, that seems very fulfilling. And it almost seems like one of the things I wanted to create from this is a hub of innovation. And it seems like you've been able to do that with GrowthX and all the different subsets, being able to facilitate innovation and, more importantly, the growth mindset behind it too.
Yeah, well, what I recognized when I would go around the world and talk in these other communities, and I've been to hundreds of them around the world, and there are some 8,000 to 10,000 of these kinds of communities on a global scale. is that they're really missing three things. They're missing an aligned incentive structure where the funders, the founders, the governments, the talent, the customers, they all don't have the same fully aligned incentive structure. They're missing a framework to execute on finding customers, getting customers, keeping them, and growing them. And they're missing a business model to support it. Most of these organizations or most of these ecosystems are very fragmented, and they get their funding in a top-down way from governments, which isn't aligned with what's in the best interest of the community or the entrepreneurs. So how do you solve for all that? So a tuition-based program through the academy, services to corporations and governments and startups, and you've got yourself a business model tied to the framework to help them grow and find product market fit. And we have a very unique fund structure as well that helps us invest capital in a very capital efficient way to learn where product market fit exists before we start investing for scale, and everyone wins. And that's the idea. And that's how you build a good innovation ecosystem.
Interesting. I'll have to take that to heart. And you were mentioning too, like you've been part of like many of those global startup accelerators and innovation conferences and just even various universities. I haven't been able to experience those yet. So I really wanted to see what some of your biggest takeaways are from those experiences.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, that's how I kind of came up with the five skills to win in the innovation economy, right? Which is, the first is that mindset that we've been talking about. You've got to have that first. If you don't have the mindset, everything else just gets blocked. The second is business acumen. Do you understand how businesses work, how they make money, who their customers are and who their customers' customers are, and how that entire ecosystem operates, and how you can contribute to it in some way, shape, or form? That's number two, having that sound business acumen. Number three is market acumen. How quickly can you become a domain or subject matter expert in a given area?
Yeah.
And that ties back to what we talked about at the building blocks of mastery. So how quickly can you adopt a language and then communicate that? Because that's the fourth one, communication. How do you now articulate the way that you can contribute to that business or that person in that market? Just because you all speak English doesn't mean you speak the same language.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own lexicon, taxonomy, or series of keywords that they use to describe the work that they do or how they feel. And if you can't adopt those quickly, you can't become a subject matter expert. And in the innovation economy, everybody wants to talk to subject matter experts. They want to talk to people who have real insights and different experiences. They want to hear things they've never heard. They want to see things they've never seen. They want to think new things, and they want somebody to lead them on that. And that comes from market acumen and communicating that. And then the last one, just as important as all the rest, if maybe not more important, is emotional intelligence. In the age of AI, you have to have EI to separate yourself. Otherwise, the bots are going to take your job.
Yeah.
So are you emotionally intelligent? Do you have real empathy and understanding for other people? Are you an active listener? Yeah. Can you be creative on the fly? Can you connect and build trust in relationships? Because if you want a lasting mover advantage, you talked about first mover advantage earlier. I've written an article called The Lasting Mover Advantage and what makes a company last. Because you look at Google wasn't the first search engine, Netflix wasn't the first streaming service, Amazon wasn't the first major e-commerce player, Facebook wasn't the first social network, right? But they're the winners. And what makes them the winners? It's their ability to build lasting relationships with their customers,
right?
And trust, amongst other things. But as I said earlier, trust is the foundation for any successful relationship, and that comes from having that emotional intelligence. So mindset, business acumen, market acumen, communication skills of all kinds, and emotional intelligence. And those are the areas that you can develop, because in the innovation economy, there's no difference between personal and professional development. If you develop yourself as a person, you will be a better professional. And those are the five areas where everybody can create their own five-tool athlete, even if they aren't one today, because all of those things translate into any product, any market, any sector. And then understand what kind of stage you like to play in as a person. Do you like to be 0 to 1? Do you like to be 1 to 10? Do you like to be 10 to 100? Are you a designer? Are you a builder? Are you a grower? Are you a manager? Are you a leader? Are you an operator? What is it that you enjoy, right? And are you an individual contributor? Those are the questions that you've got to answer for yourself. And that's when you can start to understand how to craft your career story.
Right.
Because people want to help you, but they need to know what to help you with, and it should be specific.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to have a simple narrative that says, this is the kind of work I'm looking to do with these kinds of people in this kind of environment. Here's my, here's why, and here's the experience I've gained that supports that I'm the right person to be doing that, especially now, right? Yeah. Things are changing dramatically. The digital transformation is here to stay. It was coming, but it's coming 5 years faster than many, many people expected it. And people are pleasantly surprised how quickly they're pivoting and moving and adapting to it. Because all the infrastructure has existed for decades. It's just people haven't prioritized it. Yeah. Now they're prioritizing it, and they're shocking themselves about how quickly they're able to adapt.
Yeah.
One of the guys I was just on the phone with was a university president who said in 2 days, they moved all 4,800 students online.
Wow.
And they had zero online programming, and they were blown away by it.
Yeah.
And they're so excited, and they're so impressed with themselves. And it's great, I mean, because you've already had all the content. It's all been there digitally. Yeah. What have you added? You've added Zoom. Congratulations. Now everybody's on Zoom together, and you're doing it virtually. But I don't mean to minimize it, but that's the world that we're in now. To succeed in it, you need to develop those 5 skills.
Yeah. I was going to say, there's just been this kind of almost stage of hypergrowth in some areas, with obviously Zoom is getting really big because people are using it like we are right now. And just how people who are adaptive to change, and such as that president for that university, have been able to achieve that hypergrowth, or at the very least, surprising growth in that regard. Yeah. So how do you think people or organizations can really try to achieve that in this case?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're forced to right now, right? So the only two, people always say the one constant in life is change. Mm-hmm. I think there's 2. I think it's change, and then I think it's resistance to change, except when they're forced into it. And right now, people are being forced into it. And when they're forced, they adapt quickly. And so I'm not surprised at how quickly people are doing this. But people like you and I, we've been in a work from home or virtual mobile work environment for years and years and years. So to us, this is no big deal.
Yeah.
In fact, it's easier.
Yeah.
Not harder. I don't have to deal with commutes. I'm not on airplanes 170, 80 days a year, which I normally am right now. I love doing that, but this is also fun.
Yeah.
So it's easier for us. It's going to be challenging for others, but those are the people that have to change their mindsets. Mm-hmm. They have to learn new things. You can teach an old dog new tricks, but the old dog has to be willing to learn. And the first principle of accelerated learning is direct experience. Right. You just dig in. It's software. What can you do? You can't freaking break it or kill anybody with it. Yeah. It's not a car. It's a computer, and you can make it work. And you already are, because you got a smartphone.
Right.
So it's not that big of a deal. In fact, the leaders I'm talking to are all having that same conversation. How many of our, how much office space do we really need? How often do we really need to convene in the future? Do we need to spend all this money on this stuff? I think the industry that's going to have the most upheaval is commercial real estate.
Yeah.
I think that whole world is going to change. But you're right. There are other industries that are thriving. So anything that's virtual, VMware is crushing it right now. I got a portfolio company called Red 5 that does live video streaming that powers applications like this, like Zoom. Wow. That you have ultra low latency live streaming. And they can't keep up. I mean, they are absolutely slammed because everybody's going to these virtual environments. And they want secure virtual environments they don't get from Zoom. So there's different companies, and there's a whole list of resilient companies out there. In fact, there was a list built and shared with the world by the founders of LeadSift of 16,000 resilient companies that people can go find. Hackers will go find it. A true hacker would know how to find it without any instruction from me. And they can use that to know that those people are still buying, they're still hiring, they're still marketing and selling, they're still actively building and producing right now because they are well positioned for this massive global digital transformation that's coming.
Yeah, that's fantastic point of view there too, and I think that, like Freud said, it is those who are most adaptive to change that will survive. And I'm excited to see what companies are able to grow, what companies have to die out in order for another one to take its place. All in all, what needs to be done to develop the next generation of leaders, the next generation of companies that need to not only develop these 5 principles and the growth mindset, but what needs to be done beyond that for the innovation economy?
Well, I think we have to continue to come up with ways to reskill and upskill our entire workforce based on what's happened. I think that's super, super critical. I think we have to rethink all the different support mechanisms and ways that we are going to be supporting the people who are struggling from this, not just now, but in the long term. I mean, there are certain industries that will never be what they once were, and there are other industries that are going to be completely transformed, and there's some that may never come back at all. So I think we have to pay close attention to that, figure out how to empower those that are in those spaces to transition into new opportunities. I think that's the most important thing that at the societal level that we all need to be thinking about right now, is how to support this transformation at the human level.
People. It seems like
absolutely.
With your GrowthX Academy and the Poly Innovators Mantra Degree, we're trying to do that. We're trying to create that drive for self-education through these educational endeavors. So before we wrap up, what is our call to action to the audience today?
Well, they can certainly learn more about GrowthX Academy at gxacademy.com, and they can learn about GrowthX at growthx.com. They can follow me on Twitter or at Sean A. Shepard, or they connect with me or follow me on LinkedIn. You know, once again, depends on the audience, right? I mean, if they're a growth hacker looking to level up, they can take some classes. If they are looking to transition, there's plenty of opportunities there. If they're a startup looking for seed stage venture capital in the B2B SaaS enterprise space, they can reach out to GrowthX for investment accelerator opportunities. If they're a funded company, they can reach out to us for helping them find product market fit and grow. And if they're a corporation or government, we have ways to help them create innovation ecosystems. So it's entirely up to them, but they can find us. We're readily available.
That was a fantastic little blurb right there. I was actually going to ask, where can people find you next too? I'll have a lot of those links in the description below so people can find those. And all in all, thank you for coming on today. I think that this has been a fantastic conversation and learning experience.
It's been my pleasure, Dustin. I've enjoyed talking to you. I applaud you for what you're trying to build, and just keep at it, because I know it's going to work. You're great.
Thank you.